Hello, I'm Dr. John McDougall. I think of myself as the luckiest doctor in the world. Why? Because my patients get healthy. I run a 10-day live-in program in Santa Rosa, California, and you can find out more about this at my website. Welcome to the series, Star McDougallers in Their Own Words. James has a very serious story to tell you. He was in the heart disease business, but he got out.
Well, my weight would creep up a little bit, but I really don't know that it was anything more than just, I think, really bad eating habits, poor choices in food, and poor choices of quantity and all that stuff. But I was very active when I was younger, and I seemed to burn off the food. But like I say, my early 20s, I went to the doctor with very sharp neck pains, back of my neck going up to my head, and this was when I was 23, and the doctor had put a cuff on me and pumped it up and stared at the cuff for a while as it came down, did it again. He seemed a little puzzled, and then he took the cuff off my arm, threw it in a drawer, and grabbed another cuff. And I think at that point I knew I was in trouble. And after he was done, he took the cuff off me, and he says, "I have never measured blood pressure that high in somebody your age before." So it was a strong awakening, and of course I'm 51 now, and I've been on blood pressure meds since I was 23, up until just recently. And so I've watched my health, my general health, deteriorate over those years. A lack of energy, lack of sharpness and focus, I think, in terms of thinking, and again my weight had crept up till about 14 months ago, where I kind of peaked at around 206 is what and I'm 5'7", so you can do the math on the BMI. It's not pretty, and that's when I started experiencing chest pain. I started having what I wasn't sure if it was chest pain at all. Really, I describe it more as like when you're out in a very, very cold day and cold weather, and you suck in air and you get that burn in your lungs. That's what I was feeling, only I was getting it at rest. I was getting it when I walked. And finally, I was walking with my wife. We were going from our house to my parents' house, about 6.5 miles. And we got about a mile down the road, and that feeling started coming over me in my chest, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. I knew there was something serious happening, and I had to actually have her walk back home by herself and get the car and come get me. And that prompted trips to my primary care doctor, who didn't like what she saw. She put me on EKG. Everything there seemed okay, but she just did not like what I was experiencing. She sent me to a cardiologist, and that provided a whole battery of perfusion scans and CT scans and that kind of thing. And ultimately, he showed me the pictures and showed me the dark areas of my heart that weren't perfusing it, where I wasn't getting enough blood, and thought the best solution was probably bypass surgery. And at that point, I got very scared. I had seen my mom go through a bypass about 4 years before. I can still picture what she looked like when she came out of surgery. It was ugly. She looked like death warmed over, and that image stuck in my head, and it just scared the heck out of me. And I think deep inside, I knew that I had done something very badly to myself over these years, and now I was stuck. And I was like, what am I going to do? And so I started looking for alternatives to this bypass. And I did internet searches, and I looked, and there's so much garbage on the internet. There's so much misinformation. But what kept coming up was a lot of research on diet and lifestyle, the works of not only yourself, but Dean Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn. These things kept popping up. And back when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure in my 20s, my sister had the same situation. She was diagnosed with very high blood pressure when she was 25. And her doctor gave her a book. And that book was the McDougall Plan, told her that she needed to read it, follow the advice, and turn her life around. Otherwise, she was going to be plagued with a lifetime of heart disease, diabetes, all the other bad things that ran in my family. which of course, came home to roost in me, and she's been relatively trouble-free all these years. So here I am. It's come full circle back to Dr. McDougall, and it's been an amazing transformation for me. My doctor, I went into him explaining that this was the treatment I wanted to try. I watched my mom deteriorate after her bypass, and I knew, that she had bypass, and a year after she had her bypasses, triple bypass, her bypasses were clogging. So they went in with a couple stents. A year after that, they said the stents were reclogging, and they wanted to do a couple more stents. I knew that even if I had the bypass procedure, I had to make major changes to my diet and lifestyle. I knew that wasn't going to be enough to save me. So I adopted the program, and against my doctor's wishes, he strongly advised me not to do this. He said I had too many risk factors. My cholesterol was 339. I was a male. I had high blood pressure. I was overweight. I had a strong family history of heart disease. He said we needed to go in interventionally and do something about this right away. But something inside, everything I was reading said that this was the right path. And I told him I wanted to try it just for a few months, just to see what would happen. So he scheduled me back for an appointment 11 weeks later. I've been fully following the McDougall plan. I haven't deviated one bit from it. And when I met with him 11 weeks later, I had lost 22 pounds. My cholesterol had gone from 339 to 119. All the other markers in my blood were at, historically for me, low levels. Triglycerides were low, and he was just amazed at the response I had to the diet. And at that point, he actually, instead of warning me about the diet, actually started encouraging me. And it's been an amazing transformation, not only in myself, but in him. And he's become my biggest supporter. And this new way of life I've adopted has been the most amazing transformation since my high school years. I'm now off the 3 blood pressure medicines that I was on. I'm now off my cholesterol medication. I'm now taking a baby aspirin a day, and I'm even giving some thought about dropping that too, but all with my doctor's permission. And as I say, it's been an amazing transformation for me and for my wife as well. I started the journey at 206 pounds. I'm now 157 pounds and 50 pounds or so. I think I knew from my very first follow-up at the doctor's office that I had found what I needed to find to stay healthy the rest of my life. And I think the chest pains for me represented a wake-up call and really an opportunity to turn things around, not just for the heart disease, but for almost every aspect of my health and well-being. I really think it was probably, in hindsight, maybe the best thing to have ever happened to me was the chest pain.
Well, you can see that James was in the heart disease business very deeply. And it started when he was a young man with his high blood pressure. And then he became overweight and developed chest pain, and then saw a cardiologist. And of course, you know what follows after that. Tests, treatments, but doesn't seem like anybody mentions the idea of getting well or the cause of the problems. Well, a lot of people are sick in this country. As a matter of fact, 1/3 of the population has high cholesterol, and about half the people have blood pressure that's too high. And about 1.25 million people have heart attacks, and half those people die of heart attacks. I mean, this is an epidemic, and somebody ought to be able to figure out what causes it. A lot of you already know. It's the food. That's right, it's the food. It's the rich Western diet. And when you change that, you get well. For example, high blood pressure. I take care of hundreds of people with high blood pressure. And when they change their diet, I don't mean just low sodium. They have to change to a diet based on starches, vegetables, and fruits. You have to get the grease out, even the vegetable oil, the animal products. You have to minimize these things. And what happens is the blood pressure goes down. And the patients are able to get off their blood pressure medication almost always, simply with this dietary change. And of course, there are added effects like getting some exercise. And the weight loss, that all helps too. But it's really the food that lowers that blood pressure and getting off those medications. Terrible expenses for those drugs and terrible side effects. And then when you get into the heart disease business, you really are in trouble. You're dealing with some of the most powerful doctors with some of the biggest, fanciest technology there is. I mean, they got tubes and x-rays and surgeries and so on. It gets so overwhelming. But if you can just get a break, if you could just get some time. I mean, after all, a prisoner at least gets one phone call. You say to the doctor, oh, give me some time, just like James did. Give me some time to see if I can get myself well. And you know what? You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how quickly the body heals, how fast the chest pain stops, how much better you feel so quickly. And the doctor will be impressed, just like James' doctor was impressed. After all, it's your health. I mean, you're the customer. So why not go for the cure instead of just the treatment? I'm Dr. John McDougall.